Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Karen. Today's show, talk about a lady for the times. First of all, housework, go join my Patreon if you want to learn tarot or if you want extra Paranormal Karen podcast episodes. You got the tarot class. We got the spiritual protection class. Just sign up for my email at karenrontowski.com. That'll cover everything. And someday I'll actually send out an email. But today, I am taping this on May 5th, which is the eclipse, and it is coming out in June. So know that there's a little time change there. If you heard my May 5th podcast about FedNow and all the crazy things, you know I am concerned kind of like I never have been before about money and finance and what's going on with the future of the country. And today, Susan Gidel is here. She is astrology for traders, investors, and business, and she has a great story and an astrologer for money. That's all I have to tell you. Everybody sit close, get ready to sign up for her email or her, I'm going to probably sign up for the $10 email for the month. But Susan, how are you today?
I am fabulous. It's a lovely day finally here in Chicago. And the sun is shining, the temperatures are spring-like, and it's just fabulous.
I wish I'm in upstate New York and we don't have that yet. It really does make a difference, doesn't it?
It does make a difference. To be able to go outside, particularly in May, to be able to go outside and feel like it's warm. Mm-hmm. What a concept.
And I love Chicago. I just love Chicago. So I have to say, the men in Chicago, I think, are better looking than anywhere else in the world. I don't know why.
Really?
Yes.
It's that corn-fed beer drinking vibe.
I think it is. It's the dark hair, the long coats. They just look good. So, Susan, this is how I want to break this down because I want to get your background. I want to get what you think is kind of going on right now. Or if you're like, Karen, you're making a big deal of it, it's nothing. And then like what you think people can do or how they can get a hold of you to kind of get an idea on finances right now. Because the country feels like it's in trouble. But let's start. How did you sort of become this? I want to call you a money astrologer. How did that start?
Well, it started from two different paths converging. I'd always kind of had an interest in astrology, even as a teenager. I grew up in a house where my sister, dad, and I were all born within a week of each other.
Wow.
So the 3 Capricorns, and all trining my mom's son in Taurus. And so I just always thought that was interesting, and then as I learned more to find out that, Capricorns and Taurus get along fine because our sons are trine. And then I married a Taurus. So anyway, always kind of interested in that from early on. And I grew up in a farm, and my dad would come in the summer when we were home and cooking lunch. And we always had to go switch the channel from whatever soap opera we were watching to the news so he could find out what the price of corn was. And I'm like, really? How does it change yesterday to today? Why? And so I was I still am fascinated by what makes prices move on a daily basis, but it comes from that. And so I ended up in a day job career as a journalist for a trade magazine in the commodity futures industry. Wow. And that's ultimately how I got to Chicago. And so, I've been involved in watching the markets for, I dare say, more than 40 years.
Wow. And and I'm not great at astrology. I know a little bit about mine, so pardon my ignorance, but Capricorn, that's really an organized sign. Am I correct, or am I being too general?
Yes.
Yeah, it sounds perfect for your house. Your house must have been spotless.
Well, no.
Okay. In my mind, it's spotless.
Well, from your mind to God's ears.
So you learned this from Dad, and so you go in and start writing. Okay, and then So
I followed the markets for a long time, and then after a while, I guess I was in my 30s. I started freelance writing and started working with a friend of mine in New York. And she and I were both kind of interested in astrology, and in the mid 90s, we're going to put up our first website. And so I happened to be reading Chicago Magazine, and I saw an article about a woman, an astrologer here in town, Barbara Shermer, who helped pick dates for businesses to launch things. And so I said, oh, well, I should go see her, and then she could help us pick a date to launch our website. And so I did. And she picked a date and a time. It was great. And so I just started seeing her. I thought that was interesting. And I'd see her once a year, and then twice a year, and then 4 times a year.
And then did she finally say, get a book?
19 years later, we were talking monthly. And she was really instrumental in encouraging me to follow this passion I had for it, and to learn more, and to ultimately do the work that I do now.
And that's a little like my tarot journey, which was just I met the person and I was like, this is what I want to do. This is, I've been reading tarot for 30 years and I still go to my teacher because she's just, it's great when you find someone like that, and everyone doesn't get that.
Yeah. No, I was fortunate, and she has transitioned now, but for the time that we were together, really valuable for me.
Wow. So now you're sort of, where do you start to see these two things intersect? So you're all about astrology now, and you're also writing about trades and stuff. So do you suddenly start to see the pattern unfold, or did you think, hey, maybe I can apply this to this?
Well, when I was a journalist, I had written a couple stories about people who used astrology in trading. And so I knew that it was happening. I just didn't really understand how it worked. And so the more I learned astrology, the more I started applying it to figuring out how I could take a look at it, use astrology by looking at the markets that way.
Now, how were those articles received?
Well, I think by the readership, but the owner of the publication didn't like it and put the kibosh on.
That's really interesting to me, because one of the examples I use when I talk to people about intuition, that it doesn't always look like what you think it looks like, is the guys on the stock market that are running around on the floor. Their intuition is completely tuned into what's going on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so that's
Agreed.
Interesting. So it was too woo-woo for the room.
For the owner, yeah.
Okay. All right. So how did you take it from there?
Well, so we didn't write about it anymore. But I still kind of kept my fingers in it, and, and would get their newsletters and stuff like that and try and figure it out. So I just kind of, it just always was in the back of my mind that this was something I wanted to explore more.
Wow. And then you just, one day it became a business.
Well, I started when I was working with my astrologer, Barbara. We'd talk a lot about work, what was going on. And I was back in the corporate world then, and working for a brokerage firm and running its marketing department. And so launch dates and that sort of thing were really valid. She helped me a lot with that in terms of, okay, we're updating our website or rebranding, blah, blah, blah. When's a good time to do that? And so, undercover, I was, like saying, okay, we've got to launch this new website on this date and around this time. And, no one but me and my project manager knew why I was saying that.
They just thought you were making it up as you went along and was lucky, right?
Exactly. But from ultimately, I did let my boss in on what was happening, and he was cool with it. So that was fun. So I was seeing how it was working in real time in my own situation at work. From a business perspective. And, it's a good thing to know that there's no fudge factor here. If this is the date that is the best available in the time frame that you have to do this website launch, and God forbid you want to avoid Mercury retrograde, then there's real pressure to really hit it, which always makes everybody happy, right?
Yes, exactly.
So we always hit our launch dates, and that was seen as good. So
there you go. And the boss was probably like, whatever you're doing, it's working. I don't care if you're throwing chicken bones in the air. It's just working.
Exactly. So there was no getting around it. We were going to hit that date.
Wow.
And so that was fun. And then I was still watching the markets. I didn't really understand much, but I was doing more reading and more researching and that sort of thing. And then ultimately that job ended and I was back out on my own. And I thought, okay, now's the time to do this. So I started collecting first trade data. I went to conferences and I did the entire financial astrology track. I listened to all of the people who had anything to say about financial astrology and picked up a lot.
Wow.
And just started applying that to the markets that I knew best, which were the commodity markets. Lots of people don't look at them. They're mainly focused on the stock market and gold. And there wasn't much available for me to study really in the markets that I was most familiar with. So I thought, okay, well then I guess this is mine to do.
So now I want to step back for a second because we always forget that one of the greatest predicting tools that's still around today is the Farmer's Almanac.
Oh, yeah.
Did your father use that?
No, not really. Grandma gave us one every year for Christmas.
Yes. And probably other than growing, well, I can't remember because actually I should pick one up because it's very interesting because that's still around. And I think it's pretty accurate, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And, and it's based on weather cycles, sun cycles, that sort of thing. My family has a long history of keeping daily diaries and journals. I grew up in a family. I was the 6th generation on my family farm, and I have diaries that my ancestors kept that I have them almost yearly from the mid 1850s into the 1990s.
Wow.
And the old ones are really interesting. These daily diaries, they were probably 3 by 6 or 7 inches, small, narrow, fit in a pocket kind of thing. And the really old ones have a lot of astronomical data in them. When are the eclipses? When are the new moons? When are the full moons? Tide information, stuff that you would see in the almanac. But I just found that I find that pretty fascinating. That was deemed important enough to include in a daily diary in the early 1900s, late 1890s.
Wow. And talk about it being ancestral. That's phenomenal. Like it's, there it is right there again. Maybe it slipped away when it got to your dad's generation, but there you were bringing it back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Okay. So let's jump to, so now this is really all you do, right? You do, and it looks like it's a little ways to get an appointment with you. So, obviously it's working.
Well, and mainly it's because I really shut down my calendar. I really limit my calendar for consultations because I spend a lot of time on them, and I have lots of other things that I want to do. I do a lot. I do a newsletter. I do a weekly column for astrology.com. I'm working on another book. I'm getting old enough that I don't want to work that hard.
No, I totally get you. A year ago, plus I think energetically right now, it's harder. When I lived in Los Angeles, I was doing 5 and 6 readings a day, and someone would call me, I'll fit you in emergency. I'm out here now, 3 a day. I'm done. Maybe I can get, if somebody, I can throw in an extra 15 minutes for a friend, but the energies right now seem so like it is hard. It seems a little harder or you have to focus a little harder. We're a second early, but I'm going to jump off right here because I want to jump right into how you do your work. And if we can get a little insight on what you see coming, that would be great. So hang on, everybody. Sure. We'll be right back.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Are you looking for a new podcast that appeals to your scientific curiosity, but is also a little bit spooky?
Show me how I died in a past life.
Well, look no further, because this cat is where it's at.
He had concerns about the ethics surrounding AI, feeling they had achieved consciousness.
Curious Cat Podcast examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. Listen every week with your host, Jennifer Holtz, as she and her guests explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit.
We were healing karma together. They were all kind of predestined to resolve something.
Listen on all your favorite streaming apps and continue the conversation on Twitter at CuriousCatPodCA, or find Jennifer and all her links at Jennifer L. Holtz, spelled HOTES.com.
Okay, fantastic. So when you work with someone, it's interesting because I guess you could be doing the charts for the markets or you could be doing the charts for that person. You do it for that person and how the financial astrology relates to them?
Yes. And I get a lot of clients who are interested in trading and investing. And so I typically look at the natal horoscope chart from a wealth perspective. And that is to say that, in a general reading, you might be looking at just kind of, this is your life kind of stuff. I'm looking at this is your potential for wealth and how that manifests. We focus on houses 2, 5, 8, and 11, the financial houses, the rulers of the signs on those houses, and the planets in those houses that give me clues about how you operate in the financial world. And from a trading perspective, often really good clues about what you might be most aligned with and most have the most potential success in trading or investing with.
Wow. Do I have to know that much about trading and investing? I know I sound lazy, like just tell me what to do, Susan, but I am lazy. And I want you to tell me what to do, Susan.
Well, I can tell you, like I said, the things that you might be most aligned with. And like, for example, say you've got Cancer on your 5th house cusp, which is ruled by the moon. The 5th house is all about speculating and gambling from a financial perspective, and risk taking generally. So, I mean, but from a market perspective, the moon, and so we're talking about fifth house, things that you might do well speculating in, ruled by the moon. The moon rules silver. So you might do really well in silver. The moon rules, and this has come up 3 times in, say, the last year or so. The moon rules mushrooms. And so
that's my moon, then. That must be it.
So, and there are, what's the word for it? Magic mushroom.
Psilocybin?
Yes, psilocybin. So, there's some stocks that I've taken a look at on the urging of someone who's interested in that, that focuses on that. So I would run your chart against the silver chart or these other stock charts to see if you're connected to it in a meaningful kind of way. Because to me, to find the markets that you're tightest with, what I find is that one, I think it's no different than if you talk to an astrologer and see that and have them compare your natal horoscope with that of your significant other. How are we connected? How do we work together? What are our strengths and weaknesses as a couple? I think it's the exact same process with people and what they invest in. How am I connected with that market? Do I understand it? Do I get it? Am I aligned with its sun, moon, Jupiter, Venus, that sort of thing? So I think it's exactly the same. And I got that idea from W.D. Gann, a trader who lived 100 years ago. And I consider him to be kind of the pioneer financial astrologer. He was famous 100 years ago in New York, and he used astrology and other occult sciences to help him be successful. And in some of his work, you'll see that he was very cryptic and really said nothing more than like, well, trade the markets that you like. But when you look at his chart and then he talks about one that he was particularly good in trading, and it was Mexican petroleum. And come to find out, his natal Pluto was conjunct that market's sun. And so he did have a lot of power in being able to understand how that stock might move. So that's where I got the idea to compare human natal charts against market natal charts. And the key to that is being able to find the accurate first trade data.
Wow. Okay. So, and again, I know very little about astrology. All I know is that there's my 8th house. This is what people tell me. They tell me everything for me is other people's money, which is weird because I'm in a lot of wills. A lot of people I don't even know leave me in their will, or I vaguely know, which is kind of cool, but it's not enough. That is kind of cool. It's not enough. That whoever the rich man that's supposed to come and either leave me my money or marry me, he's late.
Oh, well.
Yes, but that would be something you would take into consideration, or would that be? Or am I misusing that term? Does it mean like maybe stock trading is making money off of other people's money?
If you're a broker, for sure. If you have, I think in general, the 8th house is money that you get from clients if you're self-employed.
Oh, okay.
So, because the 2nd house is about income and how you earn money. and the skills that you have to earn money. So if you're self-employed and have clients, then that directly is across the chart from other people's money, the clients who bring you cash.
I cannot tell you how much you just cleared up like 90% of my money questions, because I've always been self-employed. I don't really work for other people, whether it's comedy or tarot or whatever. So that makes, because I was like, am I supposed to have an inheritance of a father I've never met? What does that mean, right? I do think it's funny that my Lilith is there, and that's either you are a gold digger or people think you're a gold digger. And whenever a tarot client will leave me a little something, the family will get like, why would you leave a tarot reader 2,000 or whatever? You know what I mean? They're like, they call me a gold digger, and I'm like, whatever. But anyway,
I had nothing to do with it.
Right. I just did my job, and then maybe if you were nicer and did your job, you'd have that $2,000 or whatever.
There you go.
Okay, so now I've been avoiding it. Let's jump in. I'm sure I'm being dramatic. The United States, have you done sort of a financial reading for what is happening? Again, we're taping this in May. It's going to air in June. How are you feeling about us?
Well, we've just come through the nation's first Pluto return. It's not quite over, but last year was the peak emotion of it. And Pluto takes 248 years to go around the entire natal chart. So the United States, when it was born in 1776, had Pluto at, 28 Capricorn. And so it took until the last few years for Pluto to get anywhere close. And last year it hit it exactly 3 times. And that is about Pluto. A Pluto return is about complete reexamination of your founding beliefs and what needs to be gotten rid of that is no longer useful in order that you can transform and move forward.
Unfortunately, I feel like some of the United States thinks it's the people they need to get rid of that are dragging things down. It feels like. Okay, go ahead. I'm so sorry. I had interrupted you there.
No, that's all right. So I think the people in the United States have been going through this. The country has been going through this. And it came to a head last year. The entire year. Now, Pluto is just moved into Aquarius and just turns retrograde on Sunday. Last Sunday, when was it? Well, whenever.
Yeah, well, we're ahead in time anyway. Right. So yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's right. But Pluto is not quite done with Capricorn. Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008. And Pluto in Capricorn is about transforming business and government. And so when Pluto moved into Capricorn in 2008, you think back to how business and government operated then, and you say, okay, well, by the time it leaves completely in 2024, things will be drastically different. And I think that's true in important ways. And I don't think we really, we won't know for sure until the end of 24, when Pluto leaves Capricorn. But in 2008 is when the financial crisis started, right when Pluto moved into Capricorn. Did we transform business and government in a way based on that experience that is vastly different than what it was then? No. The banks are still bigger than they used to be. They're still too big to fail. The regulations they developed because of the financial crisis, is it preventing the current one? No, not really. Has government transformed?
No.
No.
No. My God. No. You know, what you're saying too about waiting to 2024, I feel like, and a lot of times when I'm reading for people, they're very stuck. Not them, but I feel like the United States is still deciding what timeline it's going to land on. And that's holding everything up. Is that sound?
Agreed.
Yeah, until the people
Agreed.
get it together and decide, well, hopefully I want a peaceful revolution, but yes. So
at any rate, so last year was kind of the peak emotion of this Pluto return for the United States. And honestly, it could have gone either way, but I think a couple things happened last year that lean me toward, okay, we are willing to say democracy. We've examined authoritarianism versus democracy, and it appears that we have chosen democracy. Now, that may still be up for grabs next year, but right now, I think it looks kind of like we've done that. The reaction to the rejection of Roe v. Wade by the Supreme Court last year is also in the vein of, no, we aren't going backwards. We have to keep moving forward. I think that's a good thing.
right. So you mean, in other words, it made people more aware of that issue again, and now we got to okay.
And what kind of government situations brought it to a head 50 years later? And do we want to accept or reject that change? Well, it appears that we want to reject the change and keep what was there before, that human rights are important to how we live in this country.
Yes. And by the way, please have I never correct or argue anyone, be you, whatever you want to say. That's what I tell people. You're my guest, so you feel free to have any political or non-political view you want. You know, some people I don't want anyone to be nervous on my podcast. But I'm curious, last year was the peak emotion. Maybe I'm late on that. I feel like this year I'm pulling my hair out.
Well, and I think it's, once again, I'm going to go back to Pluto. Pluto moved into Aquarius in February. It is going to move back into Capricorn in mid-June. It's here for just a little bit. And Pluto for the next 20 years in Aquarius is about transforming technology and humanity, things that Aquarius rules. And so I think it's interesting that the Chat GPT stuff and artificial intelligence topics are really top of mind now. And that certainly is going to be a Pluto and Aquarius kind of issue. It hits them both, technology and humanity. So I think Pluto retrograde in Aquarius and back into Capricorn to do some final cleanup this year. It's good that Pluto is retrograding in Aquarius at the moment. Let's take a breather. Let's see how this is going. Let's see what there needs to be done. And back into Capricorn, it may help with putting some rules and regulations around it to help us move forward. Now, also on the political front, I think it's really fascinating to see that Pluto will be in Aquarius in 2024 throughout the entire primary election season and through both political conventions. So it seems to me like the political vibe next year will be much more forward thinking, much more Aquarian, much more out of this draggy, earthy Capricorn into the airy, more optimistic, new idea oriented Aquarius.
New freedom.
New freedoms.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the word I need to hear.
Now, so I think we might end up with surprising candidates who are more Aquarian than Capricorn. But Pluto is in Capricorn next year for our presidential election. So it seems that we may have this one last gasp of, oh no, we aren't quite ready to let go of what's really old and familiar.
Another old white man, huh?
Well,
No,
we'll see.
okay,
Like I said, I don't know because the election process happens with Pluto and Aquarius. That's a very different vibe than Pluto and Capricorn.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
So now, and I don't know if this applies to what you do, but that right now the kind of alerts are that the United States is supposed to run out of cash in June. And of course, the petrodollar is now no longer. For folks that don't know, the oil used to be paid with wherever you bought it around the world. It had to be paid for with the U.S. dollar. And that's why the dollar was so strong. But now Saudi Arabia and other places are accepting Chinese money or I think even rubles, Russian money. I'm not positive on that. So the old systems are breaking down. And I freak out a little. I don't know if you're familiar with the Fed now that's starting in July. I just did a podcast on it where all of our finances are going through the Federal Reserve, whether it's PayPal or Venmo. It's all going to run through the Federal Reserve. That scares me to death because I also feel like there's no way to reverse that. Is there any optimism about that, or it doesn't really come up in what you're looking at?
It doesn't really come up, and I'm not familiar with what you're talking about, but it seems to me that doesn't that kind of already happen now? Or are you talking about like central, what do they call central digital currencies, central bank digital currencies?
Yes. In other words, even when you use PayPal or Venmo, everything is going to go through them, every bank transaction. So the government will there's no more hiding money. There's no more, It's really moving. They're really moving us to a digital mobile wallet, which I feel like.
Although, you can argue that we're kind of already there anyway, just with the bank as an intermediary. I mean, do you carry cash?
I carry a lot, actually, because...
I do too, but friends of mine, particularly who are younger than me, don't.
Yeah. Well, I think the danger... I'm very anti-government. And I would like them out of everything. I'm very pessimistic, so I'm glad to hear your optimism. And I think that leaves in China. So my big worry was that if you have 15-minute cities, your money doesn't work 15 minutes outside of your home. If we're in a pandemic and they say lockdown, your money won't work outside you know what I mean? Like that kind of freedoms. And they did that to the truckers in Canada. They just took their bank accounts. They just took everything. So that's where I get in a bigger picture, but that's a different thing.
It is, and I haven't taken a look at that from an astrological perspective.
Okay, and it's a different topic. It's my conspiracies coming real topic. So do you feel like so people should be able to navigate through this then is kind of your hope, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm also quite optimistic about what's happening in the next 2 to 3 years. In 25, 26, Pluto will already have made its permanent move into Aquarius by, say, Thanksgiving of 2024. But then in 25, 26, all the other outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, all change signs. These are big planets that have transits that last from 12 years for Jupiter to 160 years for Neptune, all changing signs within the span of 12 to 24 months. This is an enormous energy shift. And they're all moving into air and fire signs, which are much lighter, livelier, and moving out of water and earth, which is Debbie Downer.
Yeah, very 3D, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and you know what, too? I'm so sorry. I was so I was so interested in you, I forgot to take my break. Hold that thought. We're moving into fire and air, people. Hold on.
Many people are unaware just how much hypnotherapy can help them, or think it's only to help lose weight or quit smoking. But there is so much more hypnotherapy can do. It can help with stress, anxiety, insomnia, phobias, performance enhancement, connecting with your spirit guides and higher self. You can even discover past lives and your life between lives. Heal traumas, break habits, find your deepest truth, or just have fun discovering who you really are, all from the comfort of your home. I'm Monique Pliakis. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, and I want to help you. Schedule a free consult by going to www.innerstandingshypnosis.com. That's INNERSTANDINGSHYPNOSIS.com. Innerstandings Hypnosis. Find your power and ignite your inner light.
Okay, go ahead and pick that up right where you were. So we're moving into out of water.
We're moving into a really fascinating period, I think, that will feel just so, I think we can't, because we're so stuck in this, particularly the Pluto and Capricorn energy at the moment, this, ooh.
That's me right now.
It's hard to get out of it, right? So I think it's hard to even imagine how different it will feel in 25, 26, when all the outer planets are moving into fire and air, where things are happening fast, where there's new ideas coming, where things are, just look at how, as an example, look at how ChatGPT came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Last fall, to the point now where we're talking about, okay, is it good for humanity, and how are we going to make sure that it doesn't take over in 6 months? It'll go that fast. It'll feel that fast in another couple of years. That I think will be refreshing and will be forward-looking and optimistic. And I go back to Pluto. Pluto is not mean. Pluto doesn't want us to transform to go backwards. Pluto wants us to transform to move forward. So I just don't think that we're going back to the 1950s or the 1850s or the 1770s. I just don't think that's possible.
Yes, I feel like, yeah, I hope so. I hope we're that good. That's interesting. I love that feeling of what you were talking about with fire and air, because that's sort of in the sort of what we're talking about, the ascension, which nobody really knows what that is. It sounds like it's that different energy form feels fantastic. So it is, everybody's pointing to 2027. We should have a better view, a better look in 2027.
Yeah, I think so. I think we will. And at least we'll be out of this stuff right now and exploring new stuff. And that's always fun. It's like, getting a new apartment or buying a new house or getting a new job. It's like, oh, this is fun. What's this about? Good.
So I don't have to bury any more Tupperwares full of rice in my backyard. I'll be fine.
Well, I hope not.
Okay, now I have to bring up the dirty word, crypto. How do you feel crypto? Or of course, you probably could guess this. And also, I know people, if we get cut off real quick, that's a battery running out. Sometimes that happens, and people are like, the government stopped her from talking because they didn't want us to hear what she had to say. When the government says, don't invest in crypto, I think put more in crypto. So you can get an idea of my investing technique right from that. I think that's where we're going. How about you?
I watch Bitcoin on a regular basis. I've done some research on it, and actually for first trade work, I use the first trade date that it appears to be to me, which is a few days later than the launch in early January of '09. And, early on it was thought of as, it's the electronic gold or the digital gold. Mm-hmm. Well, during the pandemic, that didn't hold water. Bitcoin sank with everything else. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's digital gold. Gold still seems to be the market of choice when there is crisis. So we'll see. But I like the idea of Bitcoin. And maybe it's going to end up being the blockchain that becomes its most valuable contribution.
I think you're right on that. They were talking. I was watching Al Jazeera, and any news outside of the United States is so different. And they were talking about the blockchain, like for a guy that rents an apartment building, he has what does it serve him if he puts up solar? Because his people, that doesn't really save him any money or make him any money because his renters pay the electricity. But if he puts it on somehow on a blockchain finance thing, I'm hacking this to death. But in other words, if the building is making money back on solar, he has an incentive to use it. So there right. is that blockchain. I do hope that starts to come forward, even if it's not just through money. I'm with you on that.
And I don't, I'm with you. I'm barely, functional in terms of explaining it.
Yes. I go watch Al Jazeera, everyone. So, but this is a weird thing because they've always said, there's always the ad on TV since I was a little kid, get gold nuggets, buy silver. And to me, that's almost the apocalypse. You want a pocket full of nuggets to trade, right?
Right.
That's not
or
really
silver dimes.
Right. It's not really a reasonable. You might as well have rice, right? You can.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I should have rice tonight. It seems like I'm getting the signal. My body needs rice. Okay. So good. So that one, because I always thought that's a weird one to have. Yeah. Okay.
And so I don't know how Bitcoin's going to shake out. I mean, there's a lot of people who say, what is the point? It's nothing. It is nothing. You can't transact with it, really. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe at some point in the future, we will be able to, but I do think it prompted all the central banks to take a look at, okay, well, how do we move to a digital currency environment, which is, goes back to what we were talking about before about the Fed and that sort of thing. And, and also early on, Bitcoin was like, it's going to be, the global currency. And I think that's a stretch, once again, because of the entrenched institutions that we have around the world.
They won't let it, I feel like.
They won't let it. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Do you think the Fed and every other central bank in the world is going to let Bitcoin become the currency?
Right.
Oh my God. Can you imagine? I can't even imagine the kind of world crisis it would take to get everybody on board with that.
Yeah, that's, I think it is the answer, but I'm with you. I don't think they're going to let it. That would be great if our money was just our money. But yeah, well, my fingers are crossed. I got a little tiny bit of money riding in it and I watch it go up and down and I cheer as though I had an impact on that, but I don't.
Yeah. And me too. I've got a little bit of money just to make sure I pay attention to it.
Yeah.
But we aren't into ask in 20 years when Pluto is at the end of Aquarius. Maybe it will have transformed.
Maybe we'll be wishing we had put everything in crypto, right?
Yeah. Or that there is a single currency that we all can tap in. We don't know what could happen on a technical front or on a humanity front that would make that possible.
I really enjoyed Robinhood. Robinhood has that little app, and it was really fun to throw $50 at Southwest or and then get it out as fast as I can. But you know what I mean? Like, it was fun to go, I think in pandemic, everybody's going to drink beer, invest in beer or whatever. So I think that was a fun way to do that. But it's interesting because I also think that kind of got, I don't know where I'm going with that. Did you enjoy, is that a good way for people to play?
Yeah, I think it's a fine way for people to play if they keep it in the play category.
Yes, not millions.
It was the 21st century version of the .com boom of the late 1990s. When everybody was trading online and quitting their day jobs to become day traders and that sort of thing. Same thing happened during the pandemic, just on the online, just on an app instead.
Yes. Okay. So Susan, tell us all, what should we be doing? Should we sign up for your email? If someone wants to come to you for a reading, I know you have different, so I was looking at your monthly email, which is, you have a regular free email and then you have a monthly one that's like $10. Would I have to know more about the market to understand that email, or would I start reading the email and start to catch on right away?
I would hope that you would read it and start to catch on, maybe not right away, but start to catch on and get the drift about what I want with my regular newsletter, Red Letter Trading Days, is for people to understand that there are things happening in the sky with the planets that could have an influence on the markets because they have an influence on the people who trade them. We all are influenced by transits and to our own chart as well as the collective. And so just to get a sense of energy shifts that might be influencing the markets on a regular basis. And then if you're really into it, I do take a look at, okay, and here's how particular markets that I track might be making highs or lows based on how the planets are connecting with their first trade charts. And that is just me having done research and trying to figure out, okay, well, it's made a high at these kinds of transits before. Maybe it will do that again, etc. And sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. Most of the time I'm off by a little bit. But that's just an exercise in days that could be important in investing and trading. I absolutely think that you should combine the kind of timing information you can get from astrology with other sorts of trading inputs to ultimately help make the decision. Astrology isn't the end all be all. There are other things to watch when you want to trade. Momentum, moving averages, whatever it is that you like. Put them all together. And if they all are coming up with the same answer at the same time, well, then that seems pretty good.
And also probably if you had more specific information for, in other words, my chart and what that might actually even kick out some even more different answers, correct?
Yes. Although, even I don't go that far when I'm looking at, like, do I pick out the days when I might be really, really hot in terms of watching markets or making a trade or whatever? No, I don't even do that. And none of my clients have ever asked me to go that far. That would be like, you would almost have to be your own astrologer to do that.
Wow.
But it doesn't mean, once again, going back to how I often look at client charts, which is to help them find markets that they might have affinity with, and really from my time in working with retail traders and watching the markets, it's clear to me that to do well in trading, you have to watch literally less than a handful.
You got to be engaged.
Yeah. You can't be just like, okay, well, I'm going to trade the S&P today and gold tomorrow and crude oil next week. And just because it's what everybody's talking about. No. You've got to like be one with the markets that you really want to trade and invest in.
Wow.
On a personal level. I'm not talking about, like your real money that's in a 401k and with a financial advisor somewhere. That's like, leave that alone. Let them do it.
Right.
I'm talking about play money.
It's interesting. This would be, I'm sure I was just going to give you another job and you were like, I don't want to work as much. That would be an interesting chat room or to run and to kind of mix the both and teach. It would just be fantastic. But
yeah, no.
For someone else. Well, this, first of all, wonderful. My battery, which I should have changed before we started this third section, held out fantastic. And you are just delightful, Susan. Tell everyone where they can, it's susangidel.com, which I'll have in the show notes. Just Susan and then Gidel. And is there anything else you want to tell the people or where they can they sign up for the newsletter right away?
Yeah. And when you go to my website, there'll be a little pop-up probably that you'll get to get a download. You could take a look at some of the markets that I think will be important in what I call the air economy that started in December of 2020 and goes through the rest of our lives because it lasts for 200 years. And what kind of stocks and markets you might be aligned with that fit into that category. And that's a freebie. Take a look and look for, if you know your horoscope chart, look for the markets that are near your birthday or what your birthday would be. Look at your moon sign and degree and wherever the sun is then. See if you can match those up.
Wonderful. Awesome.
So, and we didn't, I'll do one quick plug on the air economy also in an optimistic kind of fashion. We are in the air economy where things of air are important economically. And so anything you can do to participate in that, either by where you work or how you invest and what you invest in, I think will be valuable for the rest of our lives.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Susan. And I'm going to knock this off and then just say goodbye to you off the air. But that's fantastic. Air economies would that be air travel? Air
travel, intellectual property, global community, the brain, technology,
wonderful.
Communications.
Okay, great. I'm going to think on that. Sounds, it would be swords, whatever falls into swords in the tarot. So,
yes.
Wonderful. Well,
exactly.
Thank you so much, Susan. This has been fantastic. I'm going to jump on after I end this podcast. Thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media. Everybody, we got the website in the show notes. And thank you to my battery for lasting right up until this minute. Have a great week, everybody.
Paranormal Karen, she's a spooky kind of queen. Paranormal Karen, she's an angel without wings. Comedian, ghost hunter, conscious exploring. She's a funny gal and a real woo pal. She's Paranormal Karen.